Hi everybody, it's Amy and Maggie and welcome back to another episode of 10, out of 10, where we are attempting to rate our entire board game collection out of 10, 10 games at a time. Now, we keep buying new games.
Yeah, that's a problem. So the collection is sort of like continuously growing, and so we never get to catch up.
We're not even. I don't even think we're like keeping it even.
I have faith that, we'll get to a point where things will slow down. It's just we've been through a couple of cons recently that just sort of made things go a little bit, all over the place. But, now we're going into the holiday season where no one ever buys anything. So we should be safe.
we should be fine. But this is a special edition of 10, out of 10 because we are looking at all games that we picked up from Essen. And we did come home with 55 games if you saw our haul video. And we've been, of course, working on some bigger reviews that we've been dropping. But also there are plenty of other games that we've been playing in the background. So we're excited to talk about some of those.
Yeah.
So let's get started with a little trick-taking game called Fruitoplay. Now, this game was introduced to us by the wonderful Candice Harris from BGA, who has a podcast and makes video content. She is wonderful. Yes. But often we bump into her at cons, and the only place we see each other is at cons around the world. And we always have some kind of little gem that one of us has discovered, and then we drag the other person over to the booth to get a copy. That's what happened with Fruitoplay. So she said, you got to come and try this trick-taking game. Super interesting game, because what happens is everybody gets dealt a hand of cards, but there is a river of 7 cards that are all revealed at the start of a round, so you know which card is coming next. But what's going to happen is one card at a time, we are essentially going to do a blind trick, or we're all going to play simultaneously with cards down and then reveal those cards, and the person who wins the card is going to be the one who is the same suit and closest to the value, and if no one plays on suit, then it's going to be the card with the closest value. Now, what happens when you win cards? You win the entire trick, so you win everybody's hand as well as the card in the center, and then you're going to place those face up in front of you, and it's going to be one of those those scoring conditions where you're actually going to, at the end of the round, at the end of the game, multiply your lowest score by your highest score, and your score is these little fruits that are on the corner of the card. Some of the cards are worth 1, some cards are worth 2, but essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a long run of one suit, and then hopefully have your lowest suit be also, as high as possible. Be high. And there are these little rotten fruit cards that you can throw out, which minus, which sometimes are good, because if you have just one of a fruit and you can negate it, then you can get it off your little tableau. So sometimes that is helpful. It's really cute. It plays across 3, I keep saying rounds, but it's like 7 cards, and then there's 3 rounds in a game. And so you continue playing. As you get to the second and third round, they add a little additional layer where the person who's coming last gets to add an additional fruit into the mix that everybody has to use in their tableau. And it's really cute.
Yeah. I think I'm going to say it's not strict, like I'm sort of picking on the term trick-taking.
I know. It's not really trick-taking.
It's not just like highest card will win its closest card, so your card might actually be above the card that's sort of in play, or the kind of the card that we're trying to aim for. And the other thing is, if you have 2 people that play the same distance, they cancel each other out. So you might be like, ooh, I'm going for a 7 and I've got the 6, so I'm pretty sure that I'm going to have that. But if someone else has the 8, those 2, because they're exactly one away, cancel each other out. So it can be a really fun dynamic in a bigger table, but it also means that it adds a bit more chaos and it's not as predictable.
Yeah, it plays out like a bidding auction game.
Yes.
More than a trick-taking game. But you can see where the trick-taking element comes from as well, because you're taking all the cards. And it's a fun game. It's very easy, very light to get to the table. It plays up to 6 players, which is really nice. We recently took it to a game day and had a really good time with it. For me, it's not quite the trick-taking, we love trick-taking games. It didn't quite scratch that itch, but I love it as a quick to get to the table game. It's a 7.4 for me.
Okay, it's a 7.3 for me. So it's close in that it's a cute. I think it's a cute concept, and it's very light, easy to introduce to even non-gamers.
Easy to teach.
But I think because of a little bit of that chaos element, I feel that I don't get to be as strategic as I would love to in terms of having full control.
I feel like the more I played it, the more the strategy revealed itself.
So you're saying I'm just bad at it, which I will take.
Didn't say it.
I'll accept that. Should we go over here?
Yes, let's do it.
This was
Rebel Princess, finally!
This is Rebel Princess. It was one of the, it was in our most anticipated list. We may have created a bit of a, a thing at the booth.
That was the weirdest thing.
Because just featuring it. And we have to say, whenever we feature something, we don't know what it's like when it's
most anticipated.
In an most anticipated list. We know as much of it as anyone reading, the BGG and any information that has come out about it, know about it. We don't know if it's any good. We just sort of, and so, we got to the booth and
we got to the booth and the whole line of people were like, we're here because of you, we're here because of you. And that's never happened to us before. It was very strange. And the publisher was even like, you've created this groundswell around this game. Yeah. And then they did a draw for the final copy.
Out fairly quickly. I think within the first day, like 2 days. And so for the last copy, they decided, well, because there were so many people, we'll do a raffle instead of And so it was
luckily, it is a great game.
Yeah. So in Rebel Princess, I love this theme. This is a trick taking game. So proper trick taking, and where you're trying to play whoever plays the card that is the highest, matching the lead suit. It's a must follow. So if someone's played the red queens, then you have to, if you have a red queen, you have to follow. Whoever plays the highest in the lead suit will win. But the tricky thing in this is the theme is you're all fairy tale princesses, and all you want is 5 days hanging out with the girls and not actually being proposed to by these Prince Charmings. So all you're trying to do in this game is every player plays as a different princess, which will give you an asymmetric power or ability throughout the different rounds. And all you're trying to do is not win tricks that have Prince Charmings thrown into them. So the Prince Charmings are their own suit that is not allowed to be led because they're not invited. But as soon as someone is run out of the lead suit and they can start throwing in other suits, they can throw in a sneaky prince knowing that they won't win it, but someone else is going to get stuck. Once the princes are in, now you can lead with the princes because they're like, we're all in. And so it just becomes this chaos of trying to avoid winning, getting all those proposals, those marriage proposals.
And the frog.
Then there's also one sneaky frog that is in one of the other suits, the fairy kind of green suit, where you're playing your green suit thinking everything is fine, and then this green frog comes in. It turns out it's a secret prince that comes with 5 proposals in one. So you definitely do not want to win that one. So it creates, as you can imagine, for a fairly funny and type game experience. Yeah. And then those unique power abilities that the princes have really kind of throw a spanner in the works, because make you go no. I'm gonna use my power, so you exhaust that your prince for that round.
Your princess.
Your princess for that round, and then you get to do your ability. It might be the one that Amy, one of the earliest games that we had. Amy had Alice, and so Alice gets to reshuffle. So after winning a trick, usually there might be a prince in there. Reshuffle those cards, and instead of winning them, just divvy them up again amongst the players. So I was like, no. But all of the princes and all the princesses, they all have great, very thematic links in terms of their power to what that princess is, or the fairy tale of that princess. The other thing is you have this little round card. So every round there's a new almost like event that slightly changes the kind of what happens in that round.
The dynamic of the scoring, or the way that tricks are won or lost, or the ability of some of the other suits in the game. I really enjoy that part of it. So because it feels like every hand there's something new that you need to take in. So you've still got your same power across the 5 rounds, but you get to, maybe this time there's a trump suit, or there's something different that's going on, or you don't want to win the queen with princes, and some of them are quite complex,
and they're all, again, there's a lot of there's quite good thematic links. So there's one that's the masquerade, and so in that round only the person leading plays cards face up, but everyone else is sort of
Face
hidden.
down.
So it's like you're kind of behind the masquerade, and then you reveal at the end. So it's like that, and it's quite a lot of those. So you have a lot of replayability and options to like keep the game fresh. So yeah,
I love this, and I actually love teaching it because of the theme. And we had a hilarious game. It was a table of lesbians, and describing like avoiding the male proposals. It took on a whole new meaning to the game. It was quite funny. I gave this game an 8. I think it is really, really fun. The one thing that's holding it back from maybe even being slightly higher is I think it overstays its welcome just a touch. It is 5 rounds, and it probably should be 3 because it's not that heavy. And compared to other trick-taking games, it's quite long. But otherwise, I just love the round, the asymmetric powers, and the theme. It's really great.
I also love the artwork in it. So the artwork is really, really beautiful.
It's really beautiful.
So I gave it an 8 as well, and I think, again, like I love the theme, I love the concept. The reason it's not higher is because it does create a little bit of chaos, kind of like in Seas of Strife, which is also another game where it's all about not winning tricks. Sometimes you end up with a bad run where you just like win and win and win, and you're like,
and that's hilarious.
It's hilarious but it then also then means that sometimes you feel like you can't really I think it's probably more of a fun table experience than it is like
Too
a
much
serious
fun
trick
for
taker
Maggie.
kind of. But again, holds a very special place in my heart.
Very good game.
Which way do you want to go?
Yeah, you can go.
All right, so the next one is Faraway. So Faraway is it's an interesting little card game that I think probably its main appeal is that the way you play it and score it is so unique. I hadn't actually seen anything like this. So in Faraway, you sort of take the role of this, you're kind of like a walker in this land that is constantly shifting. And so the way that this is represented is you're going to have this set of cards that you're going to be, so you usually will start with a hand of three possible cards that have different terrains in the sense of like the different colors, and they also have some of them have symbols, and some of them will have quest, meaning a requirement for a scoring ability that you need to have met, usually in the form of particular symbols. So as you're playing it, you're going to be playing it, say, from left to right, face up. So you get to select one of the cards, play it face up, and then as you're playing, they also have a distance, so a number on it, which is just meant to be, essentially the numbers go higher or lower. If you manage to play a subsequent card to the one that you already had that is higher than the previous card, you also get to take one of these, I believe they call them sanctuaries. So these sanctuaries are going to be these other little cards that again have all the symbols, scoring conditions, and also act as some of the colors. But this is the tricky thing. So you're playing out one by one, 8 total cards. At the end of that, you're going to turn them all face down, and the way they score is back to front. You're going to reveal the last card and go, okay, did I meet the conditions? Do I have the conditions visible now to score that card? If you put a card that usually a lot of the ones that have a lot of victory points have strong requirements of you need to have all these many symbols, and you may have them, but at the moment they're face down, then that card won't score. So this is where the sanctuaries can kind of come in, because they also can give you options of those symbols. So it becomes this super brain-hurty game of going, wait a second, so is this going to be revealed? Is this not going to be revealed? Because then you're going to be revealing back to front. And so by the time you get to the first card, and you reveal that one, everything else before that will now be revealed. So it's going to be very easy to meet the conditions for that one.
Yeah, so what you want to really do is take on the biggest challenges early in the game. You want to play the card that has the hardest conditions early, because then it's going to benefit from having all of the revealed cards. And then you want to play cards at the right that really give you stuff, but don't have a hard scoring condition, because it's probably not going to meet its requirements.
Yeah.
So it's pretty brain burny. There's also like the way you draft a new card goes in order of the person who played the lowest card. And so you're drafting as well. So there's a few interesting dynamics. I just found this game so challenging. I still do.
It's tricky to kind of wrap your head around, wait a second, so I'm aiming for this here and aiming for that there. And even as Amy was saying, you kind of want the biggest challenge first. They also tend tend to have the higher numbers, which means that you'd be playing the numbers backwards,
Yeah.
which means that then you're not getting to take on those sanctuary cards that can be incredibly helpful towards the end as well. So there's that balance of things.
Yeah, but I guess a couple of things for me is that I do feel that there can be a little bit of luck involved. Yes, you get to choose and draft from a limited number of cards in the center, but you are kind of a little bit trapped by the cards that you begin with because you want to have something really powerful to work towards. If you don't have that in your starting hand, you can get a little bit stuck, and also the sequence in which you grab things, because even though you're drafting from the middle, if there's a symbol you need, like I really need a pineapple, but no pineapple is turning up, yes, that is from a recent game we played, then it kind of messes up your entire tableau and you can get a little bit stuck. So I don't like that element of it. Also, I just found like it's quite a heady game. It's quite difficult, and so everybody is just head down.
Very quiet.
It's pretty low interaction because you're just working on your own puzzle. So I find it academically interesting, but maybe not like as super fun as I want it to be.
I will agree. The concept of it is more interesting than the actual experience of the execution of it.
But a great concept, and you should definitely give it a go at least once. And I gave it a 7.3.
I gave it a 7 because it's, again, one that as I'm playing it, I'm like, I don't know if I'm having fun. I know that I'm sort of like brain burning, you know, and it's I think it's more intriguing as a concept than anything else.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
That's Faraway.
Faraway. And then we have Knarr. Now, a lot of people have been playing Knarr on BGA before it was even, became a popular release, including myself. I really love playing Knarr on BGA. I've played it a lot on there. And when we were on holiday and we didn't bring any games with us, so we had as much space as we could, fit new games in. Even then I was like, oh, I need to play a board game. Maggie, will you play Knarr with me on BGA? And so we played a lot of games of this. But we picked up the physical copy at Essen. The way this game works is I love the tightness of all of the dynamics in the game because, and we've talked about this before, but what happens is you have the ability to play a Viking card down into your tableau. And what's interesting is they're all different colors, but when you play another card into a column of a single color that you already have, it triggers all of the cards, and so you're going to be able to get all these goodies. And what are you trying to get? Well, you're trying to get two main resources. So we have the Viking. What's the little Viking
I think
head?
It's just like a Viking representing a Viking.
A Viking person.
Yeah.
And then these bracelets, and the Vikings are going to allow you to use. They're going to act as wilds for drafting these exploration ships. Yeah, they're ships, and these ships. The interesting dynamic is you have to spend cards in your tableau in order to get these ships. But that you need your tableau in order to get more resources. So you're trying to, how do I not spend too much of your tableau? And the little Viking symbols are going to help you with that because they act as wilds. Yeah. And when you draft these cards that have ships on them, they're going to create this secondary bonus action that you can activate using the bracelets that you're collecting. And that's going to give you a whole host of goodies, including more of those Vikings. It might have just straight victory points. And yeah, really, it's all about that dynamic. It's about which Viking card am I going to play down? What goodies am I going to get? Yeah. And then it's basically a race to 40 points. And that race dynamic is really interesting because you can see someone getting away and getting close. And then it's like, well, now I need to change gears and maybe destroy my tableau to get more of those high-powered exploration cards. So I just really enjoy that dynamic. I really also like when you play a card out of your hand, the card you replace it with is dictated by the market, which sits under the board. And actually, it depends on what color card you play. Wow, my words are not coming to me this morning. So if I play more coffee. If I play a blue card, and then it might be I've got to take the card that's under the blue symbol, which might be a yellow card. And so you're looking at that dynamic as well. And it's just a really tight race, and I really enjoy it.
I really love it. And so, like, thematically, it's meant to be kind of Vikings, but it's focusing more on the exploration and trade area. The reality of it is, when you're playing it, it feels very abstract. Like
it is.
Aside from the collection of those explorations, those ships that Amy was saying, I love how they form this. They kind of start adding up on top of your own kind of main ship, and I sort of see that as the trade routes, and that's why you get to kind of reactivate them again and get those goodies. But mostly, it just really feels.
I've never thought about it that way.
Well, it because it doesn't fully come across that way. It really feels super abstract. But even though it feels as an abstract experience, I really, really enjoy this puzzle.
You know why?
It's just so satisfying.
Because it's pretty fiddly.
It's quite fiddly in real life. Yes, if you're not playing in BGA.
Yeah. That's what I discovered, is I love this game on BGA. And then when we played it in person, I was like, I really like that BGA does everything for you, because there's a lot of putting resources back and taking them out and putting them back and then changing cards. And there's just a little too much fiddliness for me. And it's actually not very interactive at all. So I like on BGA that's quite snappy.
Yeah, I agree. Aside from that, I guess the main point of interaction is sometimes you have your eye on one of those exploration cards, and then you're kind of sussing out, can they get it? Can they steal? Can someone else take it? That's probably the main thing. I didn't find that as much with the main kind of Viking cards, but definitely with the explorations, because some of them have lots of points attached to them. So you have the ones that are harder to get, have lots of points, and then there's ones that are easier to get, that give you more just like immediate benefits, or like add to the resources that you're going to get. I really, really love this, and I remember even because we played it mostly on BGA. And then when we were playing it in real life, I'm like, Amy's not gonna like this, and I was kind of looking. I was like, is there a solo for this? Because like I know I'm not gonna be able to play this. I know
you really picked it when we were playing. Actually, which is weird, because I was the one that was like, let's play Knarr, and I was the one that was like, let's buy Knarr, because I love it so much on BGA. In person, not as much. I gave it a 7.5.
My heart.
I love all of the dynamics between, but realistically, it's not a game that I want to get to the table as much. I'll play it on BGA any day, though.
Okay, I give it an 8.4. I really enjoy it. I'm not kidding. This is another outlier of it does not feel thematic, but I just so enjoy the puzzle.
That was very surprising.
I also love that for a game that is so abstract. They actually had, like, the first page of the rulebook is this full sort of little write-up from a professor in essentially like Viking studies. So I was like, oh, look at that. They even got kind of consultation for a game that, ended up being as an abstract experience. That I really appreciate that. So,
surprising. That's very, very high. I'll do another one, shall I?
Yeah.
Let's go with Quicksand. So Quicksand is it's by Horrible Guild, and it's a cooperative sand timer real-time game. So think about the game Kites. Fairly similar to that.
Chaos flipping sand timers.
But in this one, you have different sand timers with different speeds still, but you're going to set up kind of a level. So it starts quite easy and it gets harder and harder, and the levels are all included in the instruction booklet. And what you're going to be doing, though, is together you're going to be working on moving all of these sand timers from one side of a path to the other. So you've got to try and get them all to the end of the path. And the way that you're going to be doing that is by playing a card out of your hand that either represents a color or a symbol. And all of the discs that the sand timers are sitting on have a color and a symbol. And when you play, for example, a triangle card, every sand timer that's currently on a triangle is going to get to be flipped and moved to the next tile. So that's how you move them along. But what's interesting is kind of at the end of the path, there is a dead zone.
Danger zone.
Danger zone. Dead zone, it sounds so grim.
Well, it is a dead zone if you lose the game.
It is. Guess, and you can't let a sand timer run out in that zone. If you do, you immediately lose. If a sand timer runs out on the rest of the path, it's okay. You actually get to move them off the path, but you need to bring them back using a wild card. And a wild card, obviously, otherwise can be used as either any color or any shape to move a single sand timer forward when you get stuck, which you will, because in this game, not everybody will have the right combination. Obviously, the sequence really matters, because in this one, it's not about anyone can play a card who has the right card. It is moving across, players. And so you have to be communicating at all times. It's like, does someone have an orange card? And, everyone's like, yeah, I've got an orange card. Just hurry up and play something.
Whatever.
Play anything. And so it's very hectic. I would say the starting levels are quite easy. And it gives you a good sense of like we can do this.
Yeah.
This is not that challenging. And then it starts to introduce at later levels some things like these little blocking tokens that get placed on there, and it acts as like a barrier. So you need to get the right symbol twice in order to move past those barriers, or color, I should say. And then there's the path itself also gets longer and longer, and you have different combinations of speed with the sand timers, and so the levels do get far more challenging.
And there are some levels that are silent, so you can't actually talk your way through it. You're really kind of hoping that everyone's keeping an eye on the on where the sand timers are.
And you do need to communicate.
You usually do,
That is key. We lost a couple of rounds, and then Meg and I are like, okay, we need to cooperate with each other. What are we trying to run our own race as usual? But it plays up to 7 people. We haven't played it at 7, but I imagine it would be extremely chaotic. Just like kites, the more people you have, the more problems can go wrong with the communication.
Yeah, if you're in a public place, it'll be that annoying table that just makes all that ruckus.
That is yelling at each other. Quicksand is, again, it's cooperative. It's kind of mixed bag for us with cooperative games. But I actually really like real-time games. I gave this one a 7. I enjoyed playing it, but it probably doesn't have a lot of longevity for me. And I actually really adore kites. And maybe because it was the first game that I played of that type, that game has a very special place in my heart. So I'd probably reach for that. This one, I would say, has a bit more strategy.
Absolutely, yeah. So this is a 7.2 for me, because again, it's still, still too fun and too loud for my for my preferences. But I agree that this one does feel like it's got a lot more strategy, because it's not just like, I'll play the right color. It's you've got all these sand timers on different either colors or shapes, and one color or a shape is going to move multiples of them, so it gives you a lot more to crunch in there. So that is Quicksand.
Okay.
I might come over here because it's the last kind of smaller box, and it's Witchcraft. So this is a solo only game. It's a reskin, not just a reskin, it's a re-implementation of the game Resist, which I hadn't played because I wasn't as into the theme, but this sort of theme is a lot more up my alley, and much more the kind of thing that I'm like, and then the artwork is also beautiful. But essentially, it's not just a reskin, because they have actually made some changes and improvements to the core base or to the core game that was or that is Resist. So I believe, my understanding is that this has got the lessons that they've learned from Resist have sort of seen some improvements or enhancements in here. So in Witchcraft, you are actually sort of managing a group of witches, and it sort of takes place in this world where magic is real. So your witches have real magic, but there's also real magic threatening the village where your witches live. And so you are actually good witches, and you're trying to use your magic for good to protect villagers from dying, because their sort of villages are dying, and there's all these sort of nasty things going on. But at the same time, you're also living in a village where they're like, magic, bad, witch, we'll put you in jail and probably worse. So in this game, you have your witches. You as you're playing your witches, you have an option of either playing them hidden. So they have a hidden side and a revealed side. When you play them hidden, usually, they'll have, a lot of them have an ability and a magic power that you use towards the different missions to see if you were able to kind of either succeed at different missions, and also different challenges that come with all the different sort of missions. Or you can play your witch on the revealed side, meaning that when you play them on the revealed side, usually they have a much stronger ability, but as soon as you play them revealed, it's like they've revealed themselves that they're a witch, they can do magic, and they go to jail. And so then you lose them essentially from your active deck that you're going to be kind of cycling through. There are some abilities that allow you to bring them back from jail, but it's sort of rare and few. So usually by the time you reveal the witches, it's like you have one big boom of a turn, and then they tend to usually be gone. The interesting thing with this is, as you're playing that, what you're trying to do is, in the main version of the game, or the kind of basic version of the game, you usually will have 3 different jurors. So these are different townsfolk who are going to be in the jury to decide if you're innocent or if you're guilty. And so there's this, as you're playing the missions will usually link to different jurors. So if you win, a particular mission by succeeding with enough, hidden power or even revealed power, you're going to sway that juror. Each juror has a tracker, and so you start to move that up to say now they're kind of on your side, but you don't actually know how much you'll need to move them up. Like, what will it take to convince them? Because they also have hidden different 2 cards. They start with 2 cards of what's the value that it will take to convince them, and those cards go from like 1 to, I believe the highest is 6. Most of them sit around the 4. So most of them, you're going to need to bring that up to at least a 7 or sometimes, higher. So it becomes a bit of a push your luck, because as you're playing, then you're also at the end of every round, regardless of whether you failed or succeeded on a mission, you get to go, I'm going to go to trial. And risk that I have convinced the jurors enough that now when we reveal what it would take to convince them, my number is going to be at that point or higher. The problem is it's quite a tough game. So it's very easy to start losing villagers. As soon as you lose 5 villagers, you lost the game. And some of the villagers card, like one of the villagers cards has 3 villagers in the one card. So you can be very unlucky if you have, if you reveal a 3 villager card and then the next card is a 2 villager card, and that's it. The other thing is if you fail 2 missions at any point throughout the game, you also lose. You're also getting curses that then muddy up your deck of witches. So again, if you go to a point where you need to draw another curse and there are any more because you've got them all, you also lose the game. Or if you get to the point where you've revealed too many of your witches and you go to draw, and you essentially just end up with curses and you have no more witches. So there's a lot of ways to lose.
No, that's what I was thinking. That's a lot of different ways to lose.
There's a lot of ways to lose. And a semi push your luck way to win by kind of going, I think I've got enough of the jurors on my side. Let's reveal.
Yeah. And if you don't, you instantly lose, I'm guessing.
Well, no. So I like that they've given you this where it depends on how many. If you have all 3 are a no, then you lose. If 2 of them, like if you had 1 yes, it's like a light lose.
Okay.
If you got 2 of them yes, it's like you're innocent. And if you had all 3, it's like a super win. Okay. So there's like degrees of, So that gives you a lot of flexibility. I will say there's also another mode in here that is a much more story-driven campaign type mode, where it tells you what to set up in each round, and we're going to be using, you actually get rid of the jurors, and it's just the different cards from those storylines, and it's a lot more of a story that then gets created. It's incredibly thematic in terms of the links between the witches. They all come from different families. The more of the same family that you use, the more kind of synergies they have, because obviously they kind of know each other and they can kind of play to each other's strengths. There's also all of the acts and all of the different, not the acts, the missions. They're also incredibly thematic, and the challenges as well, because they link to different missions. So I really, really enjoy this because it becomes a really thematic experience that if you're not into theme, you don't have to read all of that and you have to read into why. But even the jurors, like this, they are tied into different storylines.
So you prefer the narrative
mode? It's interesting because I really love the story that the narrative mode takes me in. But the other mode is just easier, like it's just obviously faster and just more, you keep replaying it and just change the different jurors, and that'll change the different missions.
Well, in case you haven't worked it out, I have not played this game. I don't play solo games, but so the time on the box says 30 minutes. I felt like you were playing this a lot late at night for longer than 30 minutes. Well, no, but because
I was playing multiple games.
Okay, so is that about right? 30 minutes?
That's a good question. I kind of would lose track of time. I feel like it is probably a good for any one gaming session. But what will often happen, inevitably, so you start playing, you're like, you lose because you get, villagers die.
Some games are much quicker than 30
Exactly.
minutes.
And so then you just very quickly go, okay, well, let's reset and play again. So you end up kind of sometimes playing like what feels like a game and a half or 2.5 games because you're kind of resetting and like restarting again.
What did you give this one, Maggie?
I gave this one an 8.6.
That is very high.
It is very high.
That is going to rocket it into your top games.
It is an excellent, obviously solo experience, but an excellent thematic and super hard, super crunchy, to the point where definitely the base game is a lot easier because it's more that puts your luck and you have like different levels of you kind of win, you lose. When you start going into the story mode, that is hard. So yeah, it's this is going to take a lot of a lot of times to manage to kind of get through. But I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Sounds like a lot of game in a very small box.
It really is.
Yeah.
This is going to be hours and hours and hours of fun. So that's
Okay.
Witchcraft. Yeah.
Okay, well, back to a game that I have played.
I'm sorry, that was
No.
a lot of like the Maggie show.
It was interesting because Maggie's just been playing this like late at night, and I haven't even really seen it on the table, so
Yeah.
it was interesting to hear how
Beautiful,
it is.
beautiful artwork as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
But yes, back to a multiplayer game. Footprints. So Footprints is actually the latest game from the same designers that did Come Together, which is a worker placement game that we
Which we
adore by
love.
Chili Fox as well. This game is one that is quite different to that. In this game, you are given a deck of cards that is asymmetric to all other players. And your turn, basically the game will run out when your cards run out. And I believe there's only 12. I just completely forgot how many cards there are.
remember how
I
many.
think
I
it's
think
like
it's like this
12 or
more
16
Yeah.
cards. And you're going to play out the entire deck, and then the game will end when everyone's played out their entire deck. But they are asymmetric in terms of the terrain that they have depicted on them. And in this game, you are basically cave people, kind of making your way across this this land, which has different types of terrain that comes together with a randomized hex type setup. And what you're going to be doing is moving yourself from one end to the other. The game can end if someone reaches the other, like the end of the path, or it will end when everyone runs out of their deck of cards. But the asymmetry is quite interesting because it means that you're forced to take slightly different paths through this terrain. But also the choice of how you play the card is really interesting. So you have a player board that has 4 different tracks on it, and you can either use a card to move forward on the terrain or to kind of burn the card in order to increase your skill in a particular terrain that will help you move further when you do move. So you constantly have this dilemma of, do I want to be able to move forward in a later turn, but if I burn this card for that, then I'm going to have one less card of that terrain type to actually move on the terrain. So that's like the really interesting crunchy bit. There are things that you're trying to get done on the terrain. So you're trying to put these engravings out, and to do that you have to spend resources. So you're also trying to pick up resources along the way. And at one point in the game you are able to put your special cave painting down that you still need to spend resources to do, and you need to be adjacent to a spot where you can put it down. And that's going to give you a unique end game scoring condition that the other players don't have. And that's really all there is to it.
Yeah.
You do have one leader card, and that leader card is going to give you a really powerful ability that's going to happen. It gets shuffled into the top part of your deck. So you're going to get to use, it's going to be there available to you, and you choose when you get to use that. But the interesting dynamic is building up your skills for terrain or moving on that terrain.
Yeah.
And you've got a little diagram on your player board that tells you how many of each type of card you have. So you're constantly thinking, oh, have I spent all of that type of terrain?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting.
It's another one that's like it's academically interesting.
Yeah,
It's sort of
that's
like
it.
the concept of it is intriguing, and it does feel so punishing and hard because of those choices of like, if I spend this card and I move, that's one wasted opportunity for me to move that track up. And if I use it to move the track up, then I'm not moving. And usually you get to move like one step, and it's like and you need to kind of cover a lot of ground to get a lot of resources and things like that. So it feels super punishing in that way.
It's also hard to move across different terrains because
Yes.
the terrains are next to each other, and you might only have 2 ice pieces hexes that you need to get across, and then grass or whatever it is. But the problem is like now my ice is so powerful at 6 that I'm going to waste those other 4 just moving on these 2 steps of ice. So you've got to like kind of plan ahead. But again, yes, this game for me is one that kind of sounded more interesting. I enjoyed exploring it, but something that let it down for me is the production value. I just found that some of the graphic design, some of the quality of, the the pieces and stuff was a little bit lacking here, which was a bit surprising compared to Come Together.
Yeah, it almost feels like it was a bit rushed, the production of it. And so the quality of the components, and then it was actually really hard to tell the colors apart sometimes, to the point where like we don't have any like even like color blindness or any sort of like visual impairment. And yet we were struggling on we would play the wrong color, and we're like, oh my goodness, no, okay, take that back. So that was really tricky. And even the way that sometimes the hexagons would sort of fit the cave paintings, it was like, this is so.
And around the engravings on the player board, and on one side of the board, the amount you need to spend is on one side, and then it's like reversed on the other side of the board, which actually, like, I can see why they did it aesthetically, but actually it's really cognitively unnecessarily burdensome.
Yeah. So a couple of things that production-wise, it didn't really kind of come together. It's not, it doesn't feel thematic, but the designers did warn me when we were like, because we met them at Essen, and they very kindly, like, they actually provided us with a copy of it and signed the box, and they did say, this is not as thematic as Come Together. So we were warned about that one.
And for our taste, Come Together is probably the better game. And so I gave this game a 6.8. I was a little bit disappointed in all the component quality and the graphic design, which will actually hinder it getting to our table.
I was a 6.8 for me as well. So for pretty much the same reasons. All
right, so that's
Footprints. And
Nebula.
Nebula. So this one is a really interesting, very, very abstract little game where you are essentially collecting stars to create your own kind of constellations in your own little sky board, individual player sky board. And the way that you're collecting these stars is there's a central board where you have these little tokens, wooden tokens that represent time. So you can either invest time, and by that it just means like you have 5 points of time to move across the three kind of tokens, and they're going to be going in like little sort of circles, and wherever they end up, those end up being the stars that you get to collect. Or you can use chaos, which is you can sort of spend some of the stars that you have in your supply that you haven't actually placed on your board yet, and swap them for a random allocation of stars that are going to come from the bag, and then you get to sort of select from there. So usually what happens if you're getting from the central area using time, you get to pick essentially 3 stars are going to be your not loot. I don't know why loot was the word, but it's what you get to gain. But if you're using chaos, you get to again put kind of get rid of one of yours, get 5 from a bag, and then only keep 2 of the 5 random ones that were shown. So you're getting to go outside of what's there, but you're getting less. So ultimately, what you're trying to do is there's just a series of different objectives. So that you have personal, like hidden personal objectives. There's also race objectives. The first one to meet that objective will win. And then there's also going to be these sort of advanced objectives that are more like end of game objectives. So the interesting thing about this is obviously personal objective, easy. You're just trying to make your either it might be having certain colors or a certain number of a color, or it's certain configurations. Then with the race objectives, again, it might be variations of making sure that you have, might be 1 per orbit. So there's all these different ways as well in your board that they link.
Yeah, because you've got to think carefully about where you place the stars, because there's different constellations. So some of the objectives might be about completing constellations or having, a red star in every constellation, for example. And then there's the orbits, which are the outer rings. There's also another little twist in the star placement, which is that 2 of the same coloured star cannot be connected to each other in a constellation. And so you've got to be careful about the placement, especially when you're trying to achieve some of these objectives.
Yeah, the adjacencies. So you have to be careful with those adjacencies as well.
And as Maggie mentioned, there is the layers of public, race, and endgame scoring objectives, and sometimes those work very well synergetically together. And so you're kind of looking at, like, how can I focus on maybe particular colors of stars and try and achieve as many of those things as possible.
Interestingly, with the advanced objectives, what will happen is you also have there's black stars. So the black stars actually don't go into your the main kind of star constellations area. They represent the stars that are kind of losing. They're kind of like at the end of their life, and it's sort of a reminder of death, even the death of the stars. So they have their own tracker, and you place them in that tracker, which will give you victory victory points as well. So it's like an investment of, I either place my black star here, or I place my stars in my main thing. But as you're doing that, it's also going to be moving, progressing the bringing about the end of the game as well. So that can be one of the end game conditions. As you're placing those stars, you're also getting to essentially affect what's going to be the scoring value for the end game objectives.
Yes.
So there might be some of those end game objectives that either score very little or nothing at all. So there's potentially no point.
Or even just the value of different coloured stars. So
Correct.
there's a lot of different end game scoring things that you can affect by playing a black star, but it is going to speed up the game as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it's like can be the colours, the type of constellation that score, and how much they'll score for coming first, second, third.
Yeah.
So that is super intriguing. So I think this game is interesting because it's entirely abstract, but it has such a tactile element to it, and everything in white glows in the dark. Completely unnecessary, but so cool.
But amazing. Cool. I'm always like this on the box, like trying to look at the glow in the dark.
Yeah. Which is very thematic as well.
Actually, the boards though are super thick, and they're really beautiful in terms of all the colours that are used in it. The thing with this game is when I play it, I don't find it particularly challenging. There's 3 rondelles, and I do love a good rondelle. I love a rondelle. But to me, it's like quite like it is very abstract, but also you only have 5 points of movement to affect those, the rondelles, and I kind of feel like I can see other people struggling with the puzzle, but it's just one of those games where I just look at it and it kind of plays itself out in my mind. So I'm just like, okay.
Not in my mind. I'm just like,
Maggie's always struggling, and I'm always like, okay, well, I just need to like kind of do that, then that, then that. And like, the sequence of things is like, okay, I want to achieve all the different objectives, but once that path is in motion, I don't know, I don't find it particularly like engaging.
Yeah, compelling.
I feel
compelling experience.
Exactly. I feel like I'm just waiting for my turn and waiting to see what's in the market, and then hoping just to grab the right ones in the right sequence, or changing in my mind the path forward. And what I'm going to go for. I like it, and I tend to like abstract games more. I just find the complexity not there for me a little bit. So, but I still like the game. 7.3 is what I gave it.
Okay, so this is a surprise because again, it's another bit of an outlier for me. It's still obviously it's a very abstract experience, but I just really love I don't find that compelling gaming experience, but I find it actually oddly relaxing. It's like a soothing, like,
it does have a relaxing
and the tactile element of it, and the fact that like there can be a little bit of like
maybe that's why I don't find it as fun.
Yeah, it's not as like super tense, stressful.
It's like
there's
no tension,
and it's like they're so beautiful. The little color stars. So it's actually a 7.9 for me.
Okay,
so it's not like super, but it's like it's not bad.
That's pretty high.
I quite enjoy it. And again, it's another one that's like 2 to 4. I'm gonna have to find other people to play some of these.
I'll still play it. Yeah, maybe.
She still like completely destroys me in them because she's like blah 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 blah. A million points. I got all the race objectives. I'm like, but at least I had fun.
Do you want to talk about another puzzle that you find really really hard? And I was like, why are you finding this so hard?
I could not for the life of me
figure out this game.
And it's so simple.
This is the latest game by Sashi and Sashi, Come Sail Away. And this is a bigger game from them. Usually they make smaller card games or smaller box games. And this one is really cool because I should say it's a fairly mid-weight game despite the size of the box. But what you're doing is all the players are going to set up a cruise ship. And they're going to want to invite passengers to come and, enjoy the different rooms on their ship. And everyone's going to set up the same way. So yes, there's variability in terms of the way that can be set up. But once we've decided that, all players are going to have the same ship. And then what's really interesting is you always have 2 cards to choose from. And these cards have different passenger sequences on them. So it might be yellow, blue, black, kind of the passenger colors. And then another card might just have 2 on it. So, it might just be red and yellow. And you have to choose which one of those you're going to activate. And then you're going to pick up all of the meeples that are in those colors, and then you need to drop them in sequence, either, forward or backward sequence, so in either order. You're going to drop them kind of Mancala style in this snake that goes around the different rooms in your cruise ship. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to meet the objective of each of the rooms. So some of the rooms want to have all different colored meeples. Other ones want to have pairs of the same colored of meeples. And then there's also, on every card, one of your meeples is going to have a luggage icon, and you want to position that meeple in the color of their room, the same. You want to drop them off to their room with their luggage.
Yeah.
And so you've got tiles on your ship that have only that coloured doors on them that represent that meeple needs to go to those types of rooms. So when you are able to drop off that passenger to their room with their luggage, you get to move up a luggage track. And the luggage track is really important because it's what allows you to do combos. It allows you to sometimes swap out some of your meeples, which will help you achieve the puzzle. It might even bring back the passengers that have gotten so annoyed with you that they have become disgruntled and they're going to be worth -1 victory point at the end of the game. These are meeples that you weren't able to place legally in your ship given the conditions of each of the tiles. And so really it is just about putting meeples into different places on your ship. But also there are race objectives, because if you are the first to complete the more interesting rooms on your board, they get flipped over. They're going to be worth victory points at the end for completing that room. But also if you're the first one to do it, you're going to get some bonus points too. And what's really interesting is because it's like Mancala style dropping off passengers to different rooms, the more rooms you turn over, the more difficult the puzzle becomes, because then you've got these rooms where you can't actually drop passengers off into, and so the paths that you take become less forgiving. So that's really interesting. There's also like a lobby area, the entrance to your ship, which
like the staircase.
The staircase, that's right, that sits in the middle, and that allows you to move easily in and out of different paths through your cruise ship, but it doesn't score you any points at the end of the game, and you're kind of restricted as to the number of coloured meeples that you can pass through there. You can also, when you move up the luggage track, there are additional rooms that you can be adding to your ship, and you've got to think carefully about where those are going to go at the time when you place them, because they can help open up paths too. And this game, that's basically it. The little thing in addition is that you've got 2 cards. The one you use, you're going to play and activate. Then the one that you have left over gets passed to your neighbour. And so you always inherit a card, and then you're going to draw a new card and always have 2 to choose from. I was quite enamoured by the puzzle. And yet, the first time we played this, we played it with Maggie and my sister. And both of them were like,
I just could not.
This is so hard. How does this work?
It's like, it's not hard. It was just,
feel like this is impossible.
Yeah, like it was like, wait, what? Because then sometimes you're like, but I'm stuck. If I need to be dropping them in the order that they're in the card, either as Amy said, from front to back or back to front, but I don't have that sequence that I can do that.
But at the beginning of the game, it's so forgiving. There are so many different ways.
I was convinced that Amy just had like a really lucky layout.
No, and then they also thought I was cheating. So they were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "No, I'm doing it right." Anyway, by the end. Yeah, by game 2 onwards, they definitely caught up in terms of score. But it just came. This game is quite intuitive to me in terms of how it plays. I feel as though it's interesting because if it was just me that experienced this game without that dynamic of my sister and Maggie, then I might think this is a really easy game to teach and everybody's going to get it quite quickly. But, everyone's brain works differently, and I struggle with other puzzles that other people find easy. I just
couldn't initially, wrap my head around it. Once you got it, you're like, oh, okay, I see what we're doing, and you start kind of seeing the alternatives and things like that. But I
just really like that it has such a great table presence. Everybody has their own
It's
ship.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it is really beautiful. Doesn't need to be as large as it is, probably not, but does it add to the experience? Yes.
It could be half the size. I feel like the components could have.
It makes it very accessible.
Yeah, that's true.
It's you could play with, your parents or people.
I don't know, they'll struggle. I feel because again, it's not a complex thing that you're doing in theory, but just seeing the pathways of the colors and going, wait, I can't find a path where this. I would not recommend cracking this with.
It plays solo too. You were yet to play it solo.
I
was like, I'm not going to be playing it solo. Okay, what did we give it? Come Sail Away. Ooh. I'm looking at the score, and when I'm talking about it, I'm like, maybe I want it to be higher. I gave it a 7.5. And, I feel like I'm fighting against the recency effect because when I'm talking about it, I really enjoy it. And I can see myself getting this out of the con and teaching a group of people. But is it my personal favourite experience? Probably not heavy enough for me. But I do like it. I just think it has a lot of charm, as always with Sashi and Sashi games.
Yeah, I really like the look of it. I think it's very cute, and the components, and you can sort of see the thematic link between the type of room and the type of guest that you're putting in there, and kind of. It's still a 7.3 for me. So because it did frustrate me the first game or so when I was wrapping my head around it, and then even once I got it, it was fine, but I wasn't like, ooh, I can't wait to play this again. It's like, I'll play it, but I won't.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a struggle to keep this one in our collection.
Yeah.
I say because I feel like I'm the one that collects all these Japanese games, and I just I have a fondness towards them, but there's no space.
Yeah.
There's no space. Okay.
Anyway, that's Come Sail Away. And now the last one is Dragones del Mar, or Sea Dragons, which this is quite intriguing because obviously it's three different designers, but one of them is Simone Luciani, who's obviously like a big Euro designer. We have a lot of Luciani games and love the sort of Euro-ness of his designs. And so this is a gateway game. So this is a gateway polyomino type game. So in Sea Dragons, you're actually placing sea dragons, or their parts of it, to represent, their kind of body and tail coming in and out of the water. Beautiful table presence. And you are using cards that have polyomino shapes to determine that what shape on the board or in the ocean they're going to go into. Also, you have 4 different quadrants of the ocean, and so by the end of the game, it's going to be a bit of an area majority for each of those quadrants. So it's interesting because, you're going to be playing polyomino shape to then determine the shape of your dragon in the water. But the other thing is it has to either be connected to the starting kind of central point or adjacent to another dragon, so not your own. So you always have to be touching another dragon or multiple dragons, just again, not your own. And every dragon that you touch, you're actually going to be, they're going to be gaining a coin from the supply. Coins are important because there's these swirl pools, and there's also these rifts in the middle that divide the different quadrants. For your dragon to go over any of those, you have to spend coin. But the advantage of that is when you go over one of those, particularly the dividers of the quadrants, it means that then now you have presence on both of those areas of the board for that final area majority. The other things that you're going to be doing is as you're going through it, you're going to be collecting these ship tokens of different colors, which can also help towards these quest objectives, which is, have essentially spend this type of combination of ships. That's a mouthful.
Ship-eye.
Yeah, ship-eye. And then also there's these coral areas which are more towards the edges of the board that obviously it's harder to reach to because we're all usually starting from the middle. And those ones give you these cards, so the coral cards that then you can get to choose from, which end up being hidden, but they give you either secret money or secret presents in different areas of the board by the end of the game, or other kind of goodies along the way. It actually ends up being quite a gateway friendly experience. It's quite an accessible. It's very light. You can play this with kids. You could definitely play it with non-gamers. I think for me the challenge is it's interesting, but it's not crunchy enough to keep me coming back time and time again, because again it's sort of sitting in a lighter
one thing I really like about this game is Weberson Santiago's artwork.
Yes.
Always
love the artwork.
The cards are really cute in that the sea dragons taking the shape of the polyomino tile. I just is a little touch that shows the sea dragon in that shape that I really enjoy when I'm playing.
Beautiful table presence, because it's you have all the little wooden pieces that are kind of 3D creating the sort of sea dragon crowds.
It's interesting because the gameplay itself, the mechanics of the game is super simple. simple, very gateway friendly. The scoring at the end with the area majority, I think that's going to be the part that's like just a little bit, you know, an added complexity for people that are not familiar with area majority. So it might take a little bit of time to just explain how that works, especially when you can, you know, have presence in both or secret presence and all of those dynamics. But yeah, I quite enjoy Sea Dragons. It's a cute one. Maybe a bit light for me. Oh, I gave it 7.3.
Oh, I give it higher. I give it 7.5. But still in that 7s. And again, the only reason for it is just because it's a lighter game than the type of games that we usually go for.
Always
perfect
polyomino tile games.
Yeah, there you go.
So that is another 10 games, 10 from Essen. And also, you had a few games in there that were like over 8. I think there were 3 that were over 8. So pretty high scoring games because they were lighter midweight games.
Yeah, these were all these were the kind of small to medium kind of size box games because obviously we've been covering a lot of the bigger ones in like, you know, one at a time.
We have been.
But yeah, I think a couple of them just really enamored me.
A couple of your scores quite surprised me. But, you know, if you're sitting watching this thinking, you know, we've watched you rate 110, 120, 130 games now, and there's a lot of shades of 7. I just wanted to add a little comment to the end of this. Of course, all of these games that we're scoring, and all of the scores are going to be positively skewed in terms of the distribution of scores. Why is that? It's because they're games from our collection. In order to get into our collection, there is a bar that probably you need to reach. There are thousands of games released each year. If we were to rate those thousands of games, there would definitely be more 4s, 5s, 6s in that. But because they're games there's a self-selection bias here.
You don't make it into the house. There's a pre-research that has taken place to make sure that they're going to be like at least they're contenders. They should be contenders.
Most of the games we play are quite likable from our taste because we choose them. And so that's why that is. And so the differences between the points, the decimal place really do matter. And we always, of course, look at our full list. We keep a record of that to make sure that it's sitting somewhere relative to other games that we like more or less. So I hope that gives a little bit more.
Amy loves to test me. She's like, do you like it more or less than this one? To try and trick me to see if I will slip up. I'm like, I feel about the same. She's like, yes,
it was the same score that you're giving. Yeah, Maggie is pretty good at that actually.
It's a feel. I get a vibe from it. It's like, it feels like this. Yeah.
So we hope that explains, because we do get a lot of comments about that. So just wanted to clear that up. But we hope you enjoy this series. If you're still enjoying it, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll be back with more board game content soon. But otherwise, bye for now.
Bye.